Alright, so Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS, which I did review the first episode of, has gone through what seems kind of like its first arc, confirmed by the fact that the episode that aired this week, immediately after the end of that arc, was a catch-up episode, which tends to be how an anime signifies that it's finished an arc. So I figured that I would take a break from my regular Yu-Gi-Oh! Series and talk about this first arc, which I know sounds kind of hollow since I didn't actually upload a Yu-Gi-Oh! Review last week. I'll try to get an extra one up for you this weekend or something. I apologize for that. So far, I am really liking this series. I'm not liking it for the same reasons that I really enjoyed Arc 5, but I am liking it in kind of the same way. The story, despite being very ridiculous, just like every single Yu-Gi-Oh! Story ever, is captivating to me, and I'm able to take it very seriously. This world, possibly the most absurdly technologically advanced of any of the worlds that we have seen Yu-Gi-Oh! Take place in, still makes sense. It still has rules. The world is still well developed. I actually think that's one of the strongest elements of this show so far. It's taking its time to develop things. It world builds quite a bit. It's building up the world of VRAINS more than the outside world at this point, but that makes sense because that's the world where all the action in this story takes place. But then again, every so often it drops little cultural things into the show as well. There don't seem to be big Duel Monsters competitions in the real world in this series, in this setting. Instead, kids will host like dueling clubs at their school, but all of the big time Duel Monsters stuff takes place in VRAINS. It isn't effectively a real world sport here. It all takes place in this other world, which is very popular with people, but doesn't seem to run everyone's lives. Which I think is a very interesting departure from the series. Ever since GX, basically, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been a story where Duel Monsters is the most important thing ever, and that's ever with an A. This series doesn't go with that same scenario, and I like that. But there are still duelists who play the game, I guess, professionally. They refer to themselves as charisma duelists, and they basically have personas in VRAINS that they assume when they go into VRAINS so that they can play the game, and essentially build a brand around this persona. And so far, the majority of this arc has been about Yusaku interacting with a couple of these charisma duelists. Characters who are destined to become additional main characters. You have Go Onizuka, and I can't remember her real-world name. Her VRAINS handle is Blue Angel, and each of them gets a few episodes dedicated to them, their story, and the duels that they have with Yusaku. And the duels in this really take their time. They're used to world build. They're used to, yes, of course, show off these new archetypes of cards so that people will buy them. But they do so in very interesting and creative ways that tend not to get boring despite the fact that the duels aren't as fast-paced here as they have been known to be in the past. But most importantly, the duels are used to develop characters. That's something that not every Yu-Gi-Oh! Series gets right every time, and so far this show has. Every time. Yusaku is developed, or one of the other mains is developed, or the AI character I, who I think his real name's Ignis. They've been calling him I for so long I don't think of him as Ignis anymore. And that's good. That's the kind of thing I want to see here. These decks, they should represent the person, and each time the person uses these cards in a duel, it should either reinforce or develop their characterization. We've also been getting hints as to the mysteries that this show is going to develop over time. Yusaku has a mysterious past. He may even be tied to the Knights of Hanoi, the same people that he opposes. I, it turns out, is a legitimate sentient AI with free will. But the most interesting thing of all has been the character who rounded out this arc. His duel with Yusaku rounded out this arc. His name is Revolver, and he's the leader of the Knights of Hanoi on the ground. He's kind of their head soldier. He wears a mask, and even though the mask is translucent, we can't really see any details of his face, so we don't know what he looks like. He seems to have a past that's linked with Yusaku, which is very interesting. And he has the same skill, the same ability to pull new boss monsters out of the data storm that Yusaku himself has. They're building up this connection between him and Yusaku, and I think I know which direction it's going, and if I'm right, it's going to be very intriguing. They're even kind of setting up Revolver as a fourth main character along with Yusaku, Go, and Blue Angel, showing him in the opening sequence right alongside them, almost as if he's going to become an ally. They're also kind of building up the company that opposes the Knights, Soul Technologies, into sort of a secondary antagonistic group. In fact, it's reaching a point now where I'm starting to wonder if they're going to turn out to be the real villains instead of the Knights of Hanoi, which would also be very intriguing. Overall, this series has been very good, very strong. I think this has been the best first arc of Yu-Gi-Oh! Since Arc 5, or maybe 5Ds. So let's face it, the first arcs of GX and Zexal weren't amazing, and the first arc of the original series is kind of a joke at this point. My point is, this series is very strong, and I reiterate that if you are a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! You should be watching this. You're going to enjoy it. more likely than not. Now, I do think at this point they are reaching a point where they're going to have to start picking up a little bit. The world's been built up pretty sufficiently. I think the action is going to require a bump in quality relatively soon in order to keep people interested. But the way that they've been handling pacing so well, I expect that they're going to do that, so I'm not really worried about it or anything. So yeah, it's a good show. I like it. I'm going to keep watching it. Guys, as per usual, if you have seen Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS, especially all of the episodes up to this point, what do you think of them? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. Either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.